welcome back to Four Corners of the Galley. I'm your host, P. Bo, and you're joining me on our Four Corners of the Galley TV reviews. And this episode, we've taken on a brand new show. We've taken on Animal Kingdom. That's right, TNT's Animal Kingdom. It's all the way up to the third season, and I'm here to recap the first season. I'll have another video out to recap season 2, and then we're going to get you all the way caught up to season 3. So, without further ado, let's kick it into season 1 review of Animal Kingdom. Alright, so what is Animal Kingdom? Well, Animal Kingdom is actually based off of a 2010 Australian film that was directed and written by David Machote. It is loosely based on the actual crime families in Melbourne, Australia, that took place during the 1980s. It's mostly based off of the Pintagalli family, which is the main family that is based off of that they get their main inspiration for. It's in 2016. It was actually created and brought over to the States by Mr. Jonathan Lisco, and to this day it is still on the air in TNT. Now, the American version, with the version that we're watching now, changes some of the few elements. The main basis of the story is there, but it brings it to LA, Orange County, and makes them extreme sports, and kind of changes a little bit of some of the characters, but the main stuff that's there, it's still about a crime family run by the one main head lady, Janine Smurf. So that's still the same, and it's still about Jay, her grandson. So yeah, it has a lot of the same elements, but the story is brought up and modernized for America and for basically Orange County and surfers. So yeah, that's a little bit what it's about. You know, it mixes in extreme sports, and it's actually a pretty interesting show. So there's just a little intro into what the actual Animal Kingdom is. Now let's talk about the Cody family and all the people that interact with the Cody family, which is basically what the entire show's about. So let's kick it over to the Codys and their whole people that help them.
Hey, how you doing? I thought you recognized him.
Yeah, it's because he was like 5 the last time you saw him.
So what's going on in Animal Kingdom? Like I said, when we first start off the show, it starts off with this crazy event where you got Jay sitting on the couch, sitting next to his mother who has just OD'd off of heroin, and she passes away right then and there. He calls his grandmother Smurf and gets picked up and gets taken over to the house where he's going to live now with Smurf and his uncles, and he gets to meet all 3 of them right there. Baz, Craig, Darren, they're all there ready to go. Pope's not there because, like I said, Pope gets out that same day, and they get thrusted into this Jay gets thrusted into this brand new environment. So basically, the way we see this show is through the eyes, well, not really through the eyes, but the way that we start the show is through the eyes of Jay. Well, we're meeting young Jay, who is just this young, poor kid who's in this bad situation, who gets thrusted into this great situation, but finds out that in reality, what might seem like a great place to be at has actually got way more things going on in it than he bargained for. So on the first basically event, his other uncle shows up, Pope shows up out of prison, and they have this real weird, awkward exchange. But the biggest thing that happens is basically that first night or that second day, Smurf and the guys have already planned out a big old heist. And that's the best thing that happens in this show. Now, in season 1, we basically get 2 big heists and a couple of small jobs. And what I love about the way they do their heists is they do great explanation into how the heist works. And you also get to see how much prep work it takes just to do a heist. I love the realism of this show when it comes to the heist part of it, because that's really important. If you just watch a show that a bunch of these people just rob banks and you never see how they really go about it, it's like, oh, okay, so they're just the greatest bank robbers in the world. what I love about what Animal Kingdom does is it really shows you how much prep work and how much detail it takes for them to pull off a single heist so that nothing comes back to them. So the first one we get to, they really don't give you a lot of backstory to it, but they've set up a kind of like a jewelry heist where they're going to go in and kind of steal some high-end jewelry. So we get to this heist, and they go to this area, and they set it up, and everything's going smooth. They get in there, start stealing stuff. But then when they try to get away, out of nowhere, their recon didn't work, and there's 2 security guards there waiting for them. So they're trying to get away, and their path is blocked by 2 security guards. They end up doing some nonsense. They started getting shot at. Craig gets hit in the shoulder as they're trying to escape, and at the same time they're trying to escape, one of the security guards gets brazen and they knock him over and kill him. So now they've committed they've killed someone on this heist, and one of their members is injured. So one of the best things about I think it's the second episode ending, it's where it's at the end of the night, it's after this heist and everything is going on. You got Craig sitting there and he's down in tequila because he's got a bloodshot and they got to take it out because they can't take him to a hospital, and he's being all extra ordinary for it, of course, because they're trying to take a freaking shrapnel out of him. And then you got Darren in the other room crying like a little baby because he got his brother shot and things went bad, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And you're watching this all through the eyes of Jay as he's walking through the house and discovering all this nonsense that he just got placed into. So they do a real good job with this heist. So they do this heist, they end up killing someone, and they try to steal these watches, and because everything goes bad, they end up basically, what you think is they end up taking these watches to this place to melt them because they're just too hot, and they can't sell them, they can't put them out on the market, it's just not going to be right, they're going to get caught. So you have Baz basically taking this box and he thinks he's getting rid of it. What you don't know is Smurf is, overall, is still doing things behind the scenes that would cause anybody to get mad. So basically, Baz thinks he's ruining this whole entire heist that happened. In reality, she keeps all the watches and stores it somewhere else. So he takes a box of things that he thinks are watches and burns it, but in reality, no watches get burned. And this is just kind of some of the undermining stuff that Smurf does to the guys that really ignites a lot of the anger and why they want to leave on their own. So you get this big heist that happens. At the same time, Jay gets thrusted into this family, and he's just trying to figure out where his place is for everything. The uncles are extremely mean to him at first. I mean, extremely mean, because they don't trust him, because I can understand. They're a criminal family, and they do bad things, and they don't need somebody they've never barely known or ever hung out with to come into their family and ruin everything that they do, because they are a bunch of outlaws. So they're very nervous, so they really start putting the screws on him and messing with him for the first couple of episodes. It's also kind of funny because he has this girlfriend, Nikki, who's always around him, and she was always there for him because she was a great support system for him when he had nothing. Well, now that he's raised up, she obviously is curious, and she's fully intrigued by this whole world. And you can just tell her eyes are so big to what's going on in this world. At first, it's very nice and fun, and everything's cool, but the guys even notice how pretty she is, and just Jay just dealing with the old navigation of all your uncles and all the craziness. So it's definitely some great things that happen in there. So they get that all happens. Then at the same time, when they basically, because of the way the heist goes and everything is so bad and it doesn't work out well, now these guys are broke because they're on a payment plan. So Smurf is so genius that she only pays them like a paycheck. So no matter what heist they do or how much they do on it, she basically holds all the money and uses it as a bank. She funnels it through her businesses, cleans the money, launders it, does the whole thing, but only gives the guys like a paycheck because she can't trust them with too much money. So the guys are broke because they think they're going to be on some big heist. They all got their own different issues. At the same time Craig's doing this, Craig is trying to get some more cocaine or uppers or something from his girl that he's seeing at the time, Ray, and he's always going to see her, and he owes her a bunch of money, so he's trying to figure out another heist because he just went on this job, thought he was going to get some money, no money's going to come to him now, so he's freaking out. Darren, in the second episode after this whole deal, he's down at the beach surfing, and Smurf asks Jay to go get him. Jay ends up catching Darren in the bathroom getting fellatio from another man and hiding it, and he ends up beating up this dude. What you do come to find out is this dude is basically like his lover slash friend who runs one of the businesses that they collect rent from. So he tells him, look, man, you beat me up and broke something, I had to pay all this money, you pay Smurf. So Darren's got to figure out a way to get the money to Smurf for the rent that he owes for his incident. So he's all jacked up. Pope's just kind of there, and he wants to get back into the mix of things because he got left out of this first job. So Pope is itching to get back into it because he's been out of pocket this whole time. He's been in prison, and he wants to get back involved with his brothers. Now Pope's whole mission is he wants to get back involved because he's got no money and he wants to do bank robberies again. But they've moved past bank robberies ever since that last bank robbery and everything went bad. They've actually moved on to like heists where more just they're not going to get caught. There's no cameras or recognition. They're not going straight for the money. They're going for things you would never think of. So there's this eternal fight between Pope and Baz for the whole first season because they're battling for power and who can suck up to Smurf for the other one. So things are just bad. They got this great heist. Everything goes bad at the beginning, and they're all kind of broke and stuck for money. At the same time, Baz is just trying to navigate this whole thing, keep all the guys in line, along with pleasing Smurf, while taking care of his daughter and making sure his girlfriend wife is happy. So he's got all kinds of issues. So in the events that lead up after this, basically, they have to go back and strip this car that they ruined off this heist because everything went bad, and they kind of got bullet wounds and there's blood in there. So Smurf has sent Craig and Darren back to strip this car because there's just too much evidence left in this car. Normally, they would just take it down to the dump yard, take it to the crane, crush it, and throw it away, and they're good because nothing happened. But because Craig bled, because they might have got the DNA from the other officer, or whatever nonsense, she wants them to strip this car down. So she sends them back down there, but Craig is truly jacked up from this bullet wound that he has, and it's really not healing right. So they're like stripping the car down, but Craig almost begins to like pass out and knock out. So it ends up Baz rushing down to Mexico, taking Craig down there so he can heal him and take care of him and help him out. What you also come to find out is that Baz has a woman down there, and this is where we meet his other girl, that she's down there basically, and that's how we meet her. And that's Lucy. I'm sorry, that's Lucy, and that's how we meet Lucy. So while this is going on, and they're down in Mexico trying to get things taken care of, Smurf is doing her own thing, and she's off on her own little mission where the whole time Smurf is kind of trying to get Jay acclimated to the family, but at the same time Smurf kind of she finds this, based on some things that I'll get to the Jay story, where she finds a picture that looks like somebody from her past. So she goes on this mission trying to find this gentleman that's in this picture that she's looking for. Jay, he's getting all acclimated with his family, and Jay's, just dealing with this whole thing. He's still trying to be a good student, but his mother just died, so a lot of people are very nice to him. Well, Jay at the same time, he's going about things. He's got this teacher that's very friendly with him, and she's just extremely friendly. You could just tell it's very weird. At one point they're sitting outside and they're smoking, and they get caught smoking. She rolls up and catches them, catches Nikki and Jay smoking. And she, instead of throwing it away, she starts smoking with Jay and kind of like playing with him. And she invites him out to this art show for the surfer. So he goes to this art show for the surfer, and you could tell they're just way too friendly for what they should be. So they're hanging out with this art show with the surfer. He goes back to her place, and they kind of have a moment. It's real weird, and you can just tell things are gonna be it's gonna go that route. So he leaves, and that's how Smurf sees the little thing, because she doesn't trust him, and she's monitoring everything. But he's got the paper in there that shows that he was there, but it's the picture that she sees that kind of triggers her off for her own thing. So Jay ends up getting tied into this whole mess where he kind of goes back to his teacher a little too much because it's just dealing with this whole, life, and his mom's gone, and his uncles are just horrible and mean, and he starts to get romantically involved, he starts to get involved with his teacher. But there's a bigger thing to it. The teacher actually got caught by the cops because she got hooked on opioids and then turned to heroin and got caught by the cops, who are some, detectives and other cops off of an older case where it was some informants that were trying to get the Cody family, ended up getting killed and burned. So now they're using this teacher to get at Jay so they can figure out a way to manipulate Jay to rat out his family. And that's the whole premise that they're trying to do. So that's the whole thing. The teacher is trying to manipulate Jay to get to the cops so that they can get to the family. Jay ends up meeting the cops with the girlfriend, with the teacher, and the whole time they're trying to work Jay to convince Jay to rat against his family. That is Jay's whole thing that's going on. So Baz and Craig are down in Mexico because Craig's getting taken care of. Baz is seeing his girlfriend. You got Darren, Pope, and Jay all up in the Orange County area, kind of just hanging out. Jay's doing his random stuff, and then Smurf's out on a mission, but they're all broke, and Pope really and Darren really need some money. So Pope comes up with this little side job, this little small side job that he goes on, and this little small side job was actually robbing a food truck that was selling, I think, like ecstasy or heroin out the side. So they do like a little small job, rob it. It's a cool little scene. At the same time that Craig and Baz are coming back up from L.A., Lucy's brother Marco is a big-time drug dealer, and he kind of gives Greg something to bring up, and he's got like heroin. So each one of them does like some little small jobs that they do. Baz and Craig kind of split a job where they sell some heroin to some other people, and then Pope, Darren, and the rest of them make some money off his other little side jobs. So they start doing these little side jobs on the side because Smurf's not taking care of them, and that's what causes even more tension when they all come back up. So they all come back up, and they're all trying to figure out the next big heist. And that's basically the whole thing that they're planning out in the middle, is they're trying to figure out the next big heist. Well, Baz starts to meet Nikki, and she starts to see the base that Nikki's father lives on. Nikki's father is actually some Air Force, like, accountant guy. And he starts to introduce this guy and really figures out this base and figures out what's up there. So Baz comes up with this humongous idea to use Nikki's father as like he's the bait, or he's the stooge that he's using to plan out his mission on, and they want to rob this base. And not just rob it, but I guess the way it works is they get this huge like pallet of money. And this money gets redistributed into the submarines for the U.S. Air Force or the aircraft carriers or any of the different machines, so that they can have money on the aircraft carriers when they go to all these different countries. So they come up with an idea. I mean, this is the best part about the show, is all the planning, because it shows you all the different planning they go through to do this heist. They come up with an idea. They rob a bunch of ones, and they're going to replace hundreds with single-dollar bills in their stacks. So they do all this elaborate stuff, and they set up this huge heist. At the same time that all this is going on, Jay starts to get word that Nikki's father is being played by Baz, and he doesn't want anything to happen to Nikki and his family. So Jay's all distraught and realizes that they're using Nikki and their family to get to their next heist, and Jay is seriously conflicted because he just joined this family, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. So he gets all emotional, starts conversating with his teacher and things of that nature. He ends up breaking up with Nikki, trying to protect her, thinking he's protecting her out of this whole deal. So he ends up breaking up with Nikki. She gets all distraught and, goes off, and she'll come back in a second. But then Jay runs off to the teacher and then really gets embedded with the teacher. They end up sleeping with each other. At the same time, before this all happens, the cops are telling this teacher that she has to do whatever she needs to do to convince Jay to flip on this family so that they can take him out. And they go, "What are you telling me to sleep with this kid?" She was like, No, I'm not telling you that. That'd be illegal. But basically, they're telling her that. So they end up having this whole deal where this is going on. So Jay gets mixed up in this nonsense, which is not going to help him. Nikki's all distraught, goes back to the house, ends up being going back to the house and causing bigger problems. And what this does is Nikki goes to the Cody's house and is talking to all the brothers, and this aggravates Baz because now Jay has messed up his timetable. Baz is trying to work the dad so that they can set up this heist and get this money and be care of. But Jay is throwing a monkey wrench in this, and it doesn't bother Baz because he doesn't care. He's just still going to go about this. So bad things happen. Ends up Nikki's there. Craig ends up taking Nikki away because the father's going to show up and they don't want him at the same time in the same house. You know, they're just this whole back and forth and just trying to hide things from each other. Craig ends up leaving with Nikki. They end up doing coke and sleeping with each other and just causing more issues. Nikki ends up throwing that into Jay's face, and then Nikki ends up eventually being with Craig. I mean, just crazy random stuff that happens. I mean, just wild extra area things to go on. So this big heist they set up is really great. So they get to setting up this big heist to rob his Air Force base. So they come up with all these different ways they're going to hide the money and put, I mean, just crazy ways they go about doing it. That's the best part of the show, is all the different things. They figure out a way to get on the base by posing as paintball players. And then the whole episode 9 is just this great heist. Jay has to go there beforehand and set something up to do it. He successfully does that. The family starts trusting him more. But then you get this great heist and they succeed. They rob this thing, they get everything great, and everything seems good. They bring all that back to the house and they're in a great mood. At the same time all these different things are going on, there is some little things going on the outside. Smurf got her issues going on where she's chasing after this man who supposedly killed her mom after all these years. But at the same time, Smurf kind of gets information, or she gets information that she paid for some cops, where she thinks that Catherine is actually, Catherine, which is Baz's girl and is Leah's mom, is talking to the cops and is going to rat them out. Now, during this time, Catherine is speaking to the cops, but they're trying to talk to him and trying to convince her, and she refuses to tell them anything. What we get to see is Catherine doesn't tell them anything. She refuses to tell them anything because she loves Baz too much. But Smurf doesn't know this and doesn't care. So she sends Pope on Catherine, and Pope ends up, in the craziest way, sleeping with her and then killing her. This is all right before this whole heist and everything's about to go down like the day before, so Baz is way just not going. Pope kills her. He's crying. He's freaking out because he loved her. At some point back in the days, I guess Pope really loved her. I mean, just wild, you know, family mixing and all the nonsense. He ends up taking her and burying her in the middle of nowhere. And she's gone. And then he ends up, you know, he kills her and ends up burying her somewhere, and this really messes with her. And he brings Leah back. So the last episode is Catherine's missing. It's after the heist, and Baz has no idea where Catherine is. Catherine's missing. They've successfully robbed this place. I think it was like $700,000 is what they made off of this heist, even though they left millions there because they didn't want to make it look obvious. So they got away with so much money. They end up successfully robbing the place. Jay is more acclimated to the family, but then you have this big mystery at the end because Catherine is now missing, and Baz is freaking out and trying to figure out what happened to Catherine. He doesn't know if she went to the police. He has no idea. But at the end of this, he starts freaking out because he doesn't know what the heck happened to Catherine and where she's going to be after this point. So it's the first season is more about the building of the family and pulling them all together. It's dropping Jay into the middle of the CODY'S and letting him deal with all the wildness that's going on. We also get to see all the great heists that happen and all the different fun that's going on. There's also lots of little stories that obviously I can't get to every single thing, but the main function is establishing Jay and his family and acclimating himself to this criminal family and showing that he really likes it and that he really wants to be a part of this, and that this is what he can't believe that he's actually a part of this whole thing. I mean, that's the biggest thing. That and the way that Smurf is so controlling over him and how she manipulates each one of them to do her bidding for basically those things. Whew! That was a lot. I hope you guys got all that. I hope I didn't miss anything. But that's the main story for season 1. Now, I do got a season 2 recap coming out, and we'll get deeper because that's where I feel like it really gets good. This one was very slow. I felt like it had to build up the family more. And then season 2, there's no more building up the family because you know who these people are, you know what they got, and they just get straight into the action. And that's where the story really progresses. So, all right, folks. There you go. I hope you enjoyed the Season 1 recap of Animal Kingdom. Come on back and check out Season 2, and Season 3 will be up shortly too. Until next time, guys. Good night, Ted.